Hello, everyone, and welcome to another exciting edition of Training Unleashed. Got a great guest today. But before we get started, I want to take a moment and thank my sponsors, C-Suite TV and C-Suite Radio, and also let everyone know that you can catch the show on YouTube, Training Unleashed Network. So today, we're going to be talking about one of the most important topics there is in training, and that is project management. And I think there's project management just about everywhere you look in the business world. And today we have Kory Kogon, who is vice president at FranklinCovey, who in 2015 wrote this great book, Project Management for the Unofficial Project Manager, and just recently updated the book for modern times. And Kory, the thing I love about the book is you're really about the concept and the process more than you are the details and the method. And maybe if you could just give us a high-level view of why the process matters the most.
Well, first of all, Evan, thanks for having me. Such a delight to be here with you and your listeners. And when we say process, a lot of times people the project management process. And so I'm going to take it up to the 30,000 foot view, where this overarching process, or even the mindset that we work on around project management for unofficial project managers, is the idea of project success equals value plus people plus process. So making sure that whatever we are doing is providing value to our organization, that we understand that project management isn't just about a Gantt chart, but it is about how I lead people to want to be excited about the project and want to be on my team and want to win on the project, and then a process to be able to plan, scope it and plan it and engage and track and close the project. So that's the overarching value plus people plus process equals project success.
I love it. And I'd like to talk about the people part more.
You're on.
A lot of times for the unofficial project manager, you have to invite people into a project that you don't have span of control. This is a real issue in training because many times the subject matter experts that are, if you're working on a learning project, are not your direct reports. How do you engage the people that are not part of your actual team?
Evan, that is a huge question, because in the project management world, whether you're in a small business or in your large organization, matrix teams are more the norm than not. So you are leading people that don't functionally report to you, and nobody said that that is easy. And a lot of times these people that are project managers or managing projects never wanted to really lead people. So now they realize, oh my goodness, if I'm going to get this project done right, I need to lead people. Now, there's a million leadership development programs out there. We all know, whether it's you or us. But at the end of the day, even for these people that maybe didn't want to lead people, or did but don't know how to do it even in a small way, we took from Stephen M.R. Covey's work, The Speed of Trust, where he has the 13 behaviors of high trust leaders. And we just said, you know what, if you do these 5 behaviors really well, you will invite people to want to play on your team and want to win with you. And very simply, and it's not as simple as it sounds, those behaviors are demonstrate respect, listen first, clarify expectations, extend trust, and practice accountability. So if a project manager can just do those well, particularly under pressure, you have a better chance of coalescing a team and having people volunteering their best efforts. And you'd be surprised, because that person that you thought, oh, they really can't do the job, might have more inside of them than you thought. And you'd be surprised at some of the results when you start to utilize some of those principles.
Let's dig a little bit more into extending trust. What does that look like?
So when we say extending trust, and I can best say to you, have you ever had somebody in your life at work where they came to you and said, Evan, listen, I think you you are the right person for this thing. I'm delegating this to you. And you go, me? You think I can do it? And I'm like, yeah, you have the skill. I've watched you do the work. I'll be there to support you. But you're like so excited, like, wow, I can't believe Kory trusts me to do this. And then you end up giving like 150% because I'm not going to let Kory down. So I'm taking that to the nth degree to get some visceral feelings for your listeners there, because extending trust is about a leader not feeling like they need to do it all by themselves, but that they need to really think this through. And how do I delegate well to the rest of the team so everybody feels like they're playing the game?
I love that. And I think that a lot of times people don't extend enough trust and they micromanage. And I think that turns people off when it comes to projects. In your book, you delineate the difference between duration and work.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd love to have you talk about that, because I think this is a very important part of why many projects fail.
So I sometimes when I'm talking about this topic, because duration and work hours will appear in a Gantt chart. When people hear Gantt chart, they're like, oh my goodness, not that kind of thing. And they're like, I can't believe Kory gets so excited about things like dependencies and duration. So you ask about duration. I personally think it's a time management tool for day-to-day stuff, along with dependencies. But duration versus work hours. So here's what happens. We're at work. And again, this can be on a project or anything we're doing in the speed of the day. And the boss says, hey, how long will it take you to do, to finish up that training program you're making? You say, or to, do that piece, to do the introduction for it. And I say, oh, it'll only take us, 6 or 7 hours. We'll get it. And the boss goes, great. And you sort of schedule 6 or 7 hours to do it. But you didn't take into account that I need Evan as a partner to do it. We need to check in with a couple of key stakeholders first. And Mary is going to be on PTO. So the work hours of the 6 or 7 hours is going to get you in trouble versus scheduling the real duration, which might mean that those 6 or 7 hours is spread over 3 days. And it's really important to do this because particularly if you are using project management tools like a Gantt chart and you input that time correctly, the duration, it's going to give you a lot of accuracy and strategy in how the project is going to turn out and when the deadlines will occur. So I always pause, even in day-to-day stuff, because I'm a fixer, I'm an ops person. My whole career has been in operations. And so I want to fix things, get things done fast. You can tell by how fast I talk. And so I am one of those that might say, oh, yeah, we can have it done in a day. And I have to stop myself and go, wait a minute, think about the duration because you just gave the work hours. One more tiny thing. A lot of times work hours, the best use of work hours is for budgeting purposes.
The budgeting purposes.
Right, because the work hours, it could be the per hour, it depends on the project.
Oh, the actual cost of doing, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
The cost of doing the project. That's the best use of work hours. Duration is the best use for scheduling.
Yeah. You also talk about in the book about the importance of the launch, the beginning. Maybe if you could just describe that and why that part is such an important part of the process.
Well, I'll take that back a bit. I'll step back one step because to understand that, we first need to explore all the work we do to ask people why projects fail. And this is so interesting, for unofficial project managers, us people, I like to call myself a scarred unofficial project manager, because we're working on projects all the time, just pushing our way through. We just haven't been trained. So what has that caused? It's caused a status quo failure list. So when I ask groups of people all over the world, I could be in Rwanda, I could be in the UK, I could be in Dubai, I could be here. It's the same list all the time. No clear objectives, key stakeholders not on the same page, lack of communication, people don't know what their roles are. So those are like the top 4 or 5, but it's the same list everywhere. It's status quo. So people wake up in the morning like, okay, we're going to work on that project where we have no clear objectives. We don't know who's doing what. There's no clear communication, etc. So that failure list is sort of the stepping stone to answering your question of why is the front end so important? So that first step of scoping the project, we need to identify our stakeholders, our key stakeholders, ask the right questions on a consistent basis, know what answers we're looking for so we have real clarity and tangible outcomes, and we know what success looks like at the end of the project. So all that work needs to go into scoping, because if you don't do that, then how are you going to plan it? How are you going to engage people to make it happen? How are you going to track and adapt anything? And what are you going to close? And again, I don't need to bore you with all the statistics out there on the rates at which projects fail, which is about 65%. But even projects that started out as one thing ended up as something totally different that did not add value to the company.
You know, one of the interesting things that you talked about was that big projects tend to be more successful than small projects, because well, I'm about to answer my own question. I'll let you answer the question.
So I don't think I'm not sure I understand the question.
Well, what I gathered from reading the book was that the unofficial projects, the top smaller ones, tend to fail more often than the official projects.
You know, that's not necessarily true. I think the book opens up talking, I think, about the Hubble space program and the billions of dollars, you know, that went into it. But the point is not about big versus small projects. It's about official project management versus unofficial project management. So we could do a whole nother podcast on the official world of project management and failure rates in very, very big projects, because I could tell you about projects across the world, which has made us know by Project Management Institute's research that failure of those projects, like the one I mentioned, and we mentioned in the book, usually costs 3 times the amount of the original project. So I've been in situations with big projects or listened to some of the key stakeholders where the numbers are mind-boggling of the billions of dollars that were lost because of project failure. Having said that, unofficial project managers, the failure rate is high, again, because we don't have the skills that the official project managers who are building bridges. That's a good example, right? You wouldn't have a bridge, you can't have a bridge open up and it fail. So to your point about big projects, the smaller ones, we're not trained. We haven't really had the same kind of training to be able to go from beginning to end without suffering some failure. So that's the whole point of this, is as knowledge workers, we have quietly slipped into these roles of unofficial project manager, and by our wits and our talent and our know-how, we're pushing our way through and getting stuff done, but not as easily as we could or with as much success.
So what I'm hearing you say is the unofficial project manager really needs to understand project management and to see things that they're doing as projects to properly succeed in accomplishing things. And great thoughts, because you start to think about what are all the projects you really are managing, and did you really treat them like a project, or did you treat them like a task?
Right, and it could be at work, but and it's why I keep saying everybody that's listening is very good at what they do. You are very good at, I mean, we're all very good at what we do. And in this day and age, in the knowledge, work world, regardless whether you're at a small business or a large one, anything that has a beginning and an end is a project. But even at home, we intuitively know how to do these things. We've just called out what the system is behind it. Because if you do in the US Thanksgiving dinner, or plan a wedding, or a family reunion, those are projects. And if you think about it, we intuitively do project management. Let me see, I need to put the turkey in, I gotta go go to the store. Here's the list of things I need to buy. I need to put the turkey in 5 hours before we're gonna eat. And the potatoes need to go in 30 minutes before we eat. So what I just did, there was a dependency, the turkey and the potatoes, and we're intuitively doing project management, where if you take what we already know, call it out as process, like you said, then suddenly we take our unofficialness and we're not fighting our way through, we're using our own skill and wit along with, institutionalizing the process that's already underlying how we behave as humans.
It's interesting you talk about Thanksgiving. I used to have 30 to 40 people over for Thanksgiving, and I used to create this literally 5-minute intervals of what I needed to get done to prep for that meal. So I totally relate to that story. Yeah. So your book was first written in 2015, and you're now revising it. What were the changes you've seen that inspired the need for a revision?
One of the main ones was, so I'll come back to the pandemic in a minute, because that's sort of an obvious answer for a lot of changes, but I'll come back to that. The most important thing was 12 or 13 or 14 years ago, the Project Management Institute and the world at large was starting to move to more of a agile project management formula. Now, when we were doing project management at FranklinCovey, back when the book came out in 2015, one of the things that was very, and honestly, and I say this with humility, this book has been one of the most popular books that FranklinCovey has, and which we were a little surprised about, because it's project management, for heaven's sakes. It's not the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, which is on, always our #1 selling book. And we were always about the people part of project management. We heard it in our beta testing for our workshops. And it was like, the process is fine, but how, to your earlier point, Evan, people kept saying to us, how do we deal with people that don't want to work on it? I don't know how to manage them. I didn't want to lead them, all of those things. So we always, in the original book, had said people plus process equals project management success. In the meantime, behind that, the Project Management Institute and others were starting to move. We've all heard we want to be an agile organization, etc. And this whole agile movement around, we need to loosen up the guidelines. We need to get more feedback sooner from key stakeholders while the project is in motion, instead of waiting until the project is delivered, and then we first get feedback and have to incur the cost of redos and all of that. And so all of that was happening, and the Project Management Institute changed their standard a couple of years ago to what's called PMBOK 7. So we were right on time with it, and it allowed us to update not only what's called waterfall to agile, where we at FranklinCovey created a blend between the two types of project management, but back to the pandemic happened, the types of stories that we had, the types of things that we were able to talk about in this new world all came to bear. So it's the right time for the update.
It sounds it. I also, and I don't, just commentary is the tools and things that people can work on to do a project together, the collaboration tools, things like Slack, that did not exist, really have changed how people can work together. Which, and it's easy, I think, not to look at updating. And maybe that's the opportunity for people listening right now, is to read your book and get the opportunity to reevaluate how they work and interact on the projects that they do, in fact, manage.
It's really important point that you're making, because the tools are very collaborative. So if you use, whether it's Microsoft Project or any of the Google tools or Monday.com, any of them, I'm not endorsing any of them, but you make such a great point, because they're all online, much more collaborative. Although the flip chart and colored pens works really well in an agile, those are key tools. But it's everything has changed.
Yeah. One of the reasons I was so excited to have you on the show is because this is Training Unleashed, and training departments are doing projects all the time, and they really expand past their control, where they have to bring in, first, they have to gain support from people that provide budget. They have to gain support from the people that are going to provide the knowledge and the expertise. Then they have to gain support by the user, that people will actually take the training. So I think that your concept in the book is very powerful. So I guess, because we're running out of time here, I'm just going to say, great book to read. And sort of on that note, Kory, could you tell us a little bit more about yourself, FranklinCovey, the people, resources you have for people that want to know more about this topic?
Thank you so much for asking. We do projects all the time because it's who we are. And I know some people know FranklinCovey from, the 7 Habits, which was the springboard to who we are today, which is one of the largest and most trusted leadership companies in the world. We're in 160 countries. And our website is www.franklincovey.com. So you can peruse all of the different types of leadership and individual contributor, trainings that we have. Our books are all up there, so you can click in there. And if you, just want to go for the book, any of the booksellers will have it online. Just if you want the most recent edition, make sure that's what you are clicking into, because the original edition is up there as well. So
I'm actually going to have to go back to my Audible and make sure I got the right edition. You guys, I think a lot of people don't understand the amount of training that you offer. And this audience is of trainers that need occasionally workshops and that people can go to, or people to come to their locations to help with certain things. So, I don't normally push my guests this much, but I just think it'd be helpful, because of the audience that we have, to really maybe more understand the breadth of what FranklinCovey is, because it's far more than a couple books.
Yeah, we're not booksellers, actually. We are, in the business of helping organizations, change behavior, help large groups of people within their organization change their behavior in order to achieve desired results, because it's really hard to change behavior. So we say that we are an organization that works with your people to create impact at scale, whether you're a small organization or a global organization. So we really think about our focus in 4 buckets. The first one is leadership development at all levels. So whether it's, as I mentioned before, the speed of trust, or applying 7 Habits from the leader point of view, or our multipliers training, we have a whole category, or business acumen, we have a whole category for leaders. For individual contributors, and I say individual contributors, meaning all of us, whether your title is CEO or you're a frontline customer service person, we're individual contributors that need to know how to communicate. We need personal effectiveness skills. So communication, project management, time management, all of those presentation skills, all of those kinds of things. And every organization needs to create a culture of trust. So I mentioned trust before, but a lot of work into how do we foundationally do that with building trust, navigating difficult conversations, making sure we're inclusive leaders. And then finally, we've got to execute. All those things are great, but at the end of the day, our 4 disciplines of execution work is a process by which we help organizations take really key goals and actually, instead of spending $14 million on a strategy, turning that strategy into execution to really get the numbers that you're looking for. So quite a scope of work that we do, like I said, in 160 countries. And just another data point, we've actually touched about 30 million leaders around the world. So
that is a staggering number.
That is it's a big number. Yeah.
I always encourage people to think about their impact, because I think a lot of people don't realize how much impact they as a human being have. And if you're in the training department, the company, and you're helping train hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of people at times, what you're doing is making so many people's lives better and more enjoyable, because I personally believe people prefer to be effective than ineffective. And they're looking for those tools to help them, which we as training professionals do. And then sometimes we can use outside help, which is what FranklinCovey does. I normally ask the guests to repeat their URL, but I think I can simply say franklincovey.com because it's easy enough for me to pronounce.
Yeah.
But Kory, we always end the show with, if you had one tip, just one tip to share with the audience, what would that one tip be?
For project management, for the unofficial project manager, this is going to sound, it's a tip and a half. And it has to do with some other work that I'm working on now that's really making it, top of mind. Is earlier I said we all intuitively have done, projects. Lean on, as you're taking a deep breath, I'm like, okay, I'll read the book because I'm really not doing well with projects. Think about your past successes. Acknowledge and think about, what have you done well in this area? Even if it was a Thanksgiving dinner, like your 5-minute thing. But what did I do well? Because I failed dramatically at years and years and years ago. It's what made me a scarred project manager implementing ISO 9000 around the world. But I know the good things that happened, even as my boss was yelling at me for messing that up. And that's another story. But think about your past experiences and acknowledge where you really did well and use that juice to help move you forward. And then the other half of that is to say, sort of what we talked about before, it is about the people. Even if you are a solo entrepreneur or somebody that's working on a project, you still need other people around you to help, whether it's vendors or stakeholders, et cetera. And just how am I really leading out proactively with them? Because people will make or break the project.
I love the tip. Thank you very much. Appreciate having you. On behalf of the Learning Network, I want to thank you for being a guest. I want to thank our listeners. I also want to thank our sponsors, C-Suite TV and C-Suite Radio. Don't forget, go to YouTube and look up and subscribe to Training Unleashed Network. Everyone have a great day.